live in Philadelphia, actually at the same time as me, but we never met there. Yeah, I know, I didn't know that either. And then Chicago, before coming to Ann Arbor. But while living in all these different places and getting a bunch of different degrees, one thing that has been constant is that she has studied online communities through the lens of transgender and other marginalized populations. Her specialty is gaming and streamers, and we're gonna hear all about it tonight. Please give it up for Hibby Thach.
Hello everyone, hi. So like Gabby just said, I'm Hibby Thach, and I'm going into my third year of the PhD. But honestly, it's felt longer than that because I've been working with my advisor, Dr. Oliver Hameson, who's in the audience, since since 2021. And then I started the PhD in fall of 2023. And when I first started working with Oliver, I was doing stuff in the content moderation space, or how we govern ourselves and our platforms. But since then, my research interests have expanded. My pitch nowadays is that I do research on queer and trans people of color's online experiences with platforms and technologies, and usually this covers live streaming, content moderation still, and trans technologies. Now, if you're here for Oliver's time doing this show, like whenever that was, trans technologies are technologies for trans people or that embrace transness in some way, whether that be embracing fluidity, change, ambiguity, etc. I also stream on Twitch as part of my research, and it's an excuse to play video games and do makeup on camera, so yay. Thank you for laughing. So when we were prepping for this show, Gabby told us we shouldn't try to be funny. So today, even though I think I'm really funny, charming, and pretty, I'll try my best not to be. So, what I actually want to talk to you all about today is something that I think can sometimes be a trans technology, which is VTubers. And I think like little to no people in this crowd probably know what those are, but if you do, you're probably terminally online, so congrats. So by VTubers, I'm referring to virtual YouTubers or streamers or content creators who use these like 2D or 3D motion captured avatars. They'll usually move along with you as you're streaming, like you'll see their like mouths move, their bodies move. They first got popular in East Asia, in Japan specifically, but they're more and more popular nowadays with achievements here in the West, like a streamer named Iron Mouse becoming the most subscribed to Twitch streamer at one point, so VTubers are popular. So now I have what's called a PNG tuber, which for reference is just a less fancy VTuber. It's just like a cycle of PNG files or images I have that I cycle through to make it look like the PNG tuber is moving like a VTuber. I wish I could show you what it looks like, but for reference, it's a pastel clowncore rabbit with a porcelain face. And I know that's very specific. I actually call it Hoppy, which is short for Hippity Hoppity, because my streamer name is Hippy Bo Bibby, like Hibby Bibby Bo Bibby, banana fan of Bibby, you know? So a lot of smaller content creators who don't have access to expensive VTubing software or the funds to commission an artist to make them a full 3D rigged model usually use PNG tubers instead because they're much less expensive to create. Someday, hopefully, I'll have one of those with a more expensive 3D model for myself, with or without jiggle physics. And if you know what that is too, you are also terminally online. Congrats. So the research I'm currently doing with VTubers is looking at how the technologies they're using are what I call concealment technologies. So most content creators you think about show their faces when they're, talking to you in like a vlog, looking at the camera. Think of YouTube vloggers, like, this is like a 2019 reference, but James Charles apologizing for doing another offensive thing, Tati Westbrook complaining about James Charles, all that. So VTubers reject this traditional notion of using a face cam to create content, instead projecting and displaying their virtual avatar. So what I find so interesting about that though, is that in the West, we perceive authenticity as like a creator, or just in general, through the face. You might think of like dating apps where if you see someone without a face pic or their headless torso, you might think they're hiding something or being inauthentic, shady, or untruthful. However, for a lot of the VTubers I've been talking to, concealing their faces isn't done out of trying to be inauthentic, shady, or untruthful. Many of them do it because they have disabilities that may flare up when they're on camera, or their autism makes it so they can't focus on streaming and the actual performance of being a content creator while being physically perceived. And some of them even feel more like themselves with and alongside the VTuber. I actually interviewed 2 of the trans people that I interviewed about their experiences using their VTubers, talked to me about how they use it to model the gender expression they aspired to. So one of them even started to change their offline appearance to better match that VTuber. And in that way, this concealment technology helped them to express their authentic self online and gradually offline as well. And as for me, who also streams using a PNG tuber, yes, I'm using a pastel clowncore rabbit with a porcelain face, but something about that makes me happy, and something about that makes me feel like I'm able to express myself in ways that aren't available to me offline in the physical world. So many other VTubers I found and talked to use monstrous, fantastical, non-human avatars to express themselves, and are these inauthentic because they aren't physically tangible? I would argue no, they're real because they feel real, and they help these VTubers express themselves in non-traditional ways. And before I had access to a VTuber, and thanks to my advisor Oliver for letting me commission an artist friend of mine to make me that PNG tuber. Yay, using institutional funds because I'm broke. But yeah, before I had the VTuber, I only did face cam streams. And I was confronted with myself and my reflection on my laptop screen as I talked to 1 viewer, 5 viewers, and at times no viewers in the chat. And it was very lonely at times. I had to learn to sit with that silence, with that discomfort, and learn to just stream and create content for myself. Having Hibby, my PNG tuber, helped me when I was feeling uncomfortable with my appearance, when I didn't have enough time to do makeup for the stream, or when I just didn't have enough time in general being a busy PhD student. And through streaming and using Hibby, I realized that I was also documenting my own journey with my gender transition. Believe it or not, I'm not a cis woman, which I know is so shocking. But when I look back at the recordings of my first streams in fall of 2023, I see someone who was trying out makeup for the first time, hadn't developed the body she was hoping to develop, and was someone else entirely. As I watched those recordings back month by month, I saw how the streamer, me, changed shape and form to become the trans woman I am today. Not many trans people get to document their transition timeline like that, so I feel very lucky to be able to do that for myself. To sit with that discomfort and change right before my eyes and for the eyes of anyone who would come into my chat and view my content. So through my stream, I'm doing something called autoethnographic research. You may or may not have heard of ethnography, or the study and observation of cultures and people's everyday lives. So famous ethnographies that you might have heard of are usually about someone going into a foreign culture or space and immersing themselves in it, writing notes as an outside perspective. However, ethnography has grown since its earlier days to realize how colonial that is, or just how weird it is to be a white person going to another country and being like, oh my God, look at how they live, oh my God. Oftentimes, ethnographers nowadays are a part of the cultures they study, or at least they're more explicit about their own positionality and bias that is brought into their work. And bias isn't bad per se, it is a part of all research and all work we do in academia. What's important though is that we acknowledge it and how it shapes the research we do. So in my case, becoming a streamer, interacting with streamer communities, becoming a part of these communities is my digital ethnographic work. And the auto part of it is reflecting even further how my own identities factor into this. How do I, as a Vietnamese trans woman with autism, ADHD, experience streaming, and how does that relate to others that I'm interacting with? How am I expressing myself, and how are others expressing themselves, with VTubers or without VTubers? So I believe that streaming and content creation is the ultimate form of expressing yourself online. It is performing yourself or a persona for your content to the internet, to anyone who will watch that content. For me, sometimes that might be performing as a pastel clowncore rabbit with a porcelain face, and at other times it meant becoming comfortable in my transitioning body to show the world who Hibby really is. And I don't think any of that is inauthentic, shady, or untruthful. In fact, I think it's very human, and that's why I love doing the research I do. So that's my presentation, and thank you all so much.